So the usual suspects have decided to show their backsides once again. So this has even happened before Harry and Meghan even landed in Australia, because I feel it's probably going to be one of the most important stories of this visit of Harry and Meghan, and it's being buried under the excitement of the arrival coverage. So the story, simply put, is that three media outlets, they broke an embargo. So for those who are not familiar with how embargoes work, in media terms, let me explain. So when a public figure or their teams shares information with journalists, especially if they share it in advance of an event, that information is shared under an agreement that it will not be published until a specified time. And sometimes when they do publish that information, they don't remove a certain thing on it. And I've noticed that sometimes you will see on the bit of information or press release or whatever, under embargo until blah, 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 because, some outlets are just copy and pasting. So the embargo situation is actually standard practice, and it's standard practice across every area of journalism. It allows the media organizations time to prepare for their coverage. It allows them time to write their stories and everything ready in order to publish the moment the embargo lifts. So again, it works, I think, for both parties. You you send them the information, I'm going to be arriving in London on blah, 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 blah. And the media have enough time to write all their stories about my arrival or whatever. So in return, you as the subject of the coverage, you get to control the timing of when the information enters the public domain. So the embargo is a contract. It's one of the most fundamental agreements in a professional relationship between the communications team and the press. Breaking it is not a minor thing. It's not a minor technical violation at all. It's a significant breach of trust, and it carries serious professional consequences in any functioning media environment. So, three media outlets, and of course, you can guess which ones, but I'm going to tell you which ones anyway. The three media outlets, they broke the embargo. And they are, number one, the Daily Fail, yay, aka the Daily Mail, the Daily Mirror, and Sky News Australia. They are the three outlets that broke the embargo. And according to the Sussex media spokesperson, the information that was released did not just violate a professional agreement. It actually complicated and compromised security arrangements for Harry and Meghan, which was what they wanted in the first place. And I strongly believe that these things they are doing it deliberately because they want to Diana, Harry and Meghan. And I will say that with my full chest, because they definitely, the way they are going at it, and with the kind of intent and gusto that they are going at it, they really do want something horrible to happen to Harry and Meghan, and it will not happen. By God's grace, they will be safe and sound. So when security information about a high-profile person's movements, if their timing and location is published before it's supposed to be, the people responsible for keeping that individual safe have to reassess and, in some cases, restructure the entire operational plan. I believe in Harry and Meghan's case, they've had to restructure everything. Their security teams, the hosts, everybody has had to sit down and say, okay, now that they've broken the embargo, what do we do? And that means they have to change the routes, they have to change timings, they have to add more resources to what was already deployed. So they have to bring in more people or whatever, or change the people or something. All that needs to be done. So you can imagine that the very careful work that the security personnel that they would have done in advance, you can imagine they will have to redo the risk assessment, they'll have to redo the contingency planning, And the communication protocols has to be partially or entirely redone because information that was supposed to be controlled is now in the public domain, and therefore it's available to anyone who has horrible intentions. And as you know, when it comes to Harry and Meghan, the trolls and derangers, they are just unhinged. And that is the truth. So Harry has repeatedly and publicly said that he does not feel safe. He has fought legal battles across multiple jurisdictions to secure adequate protection for himself, for his children, and for his wife. And yet, they do not listen to him. Harry has described very specific threats. We know that people literally went to prison. Yes, they went to prison for the horrible threats they made against Harry and Archie. Yes, and every day on social media, we see the sheer volume of abuse, threats that are levied against Meghan. We have people paying £3,000 just so, 3,000 Australian dollars or thereabout, just so they can be in the same room as Meghan, just so they can sit at the front. I don't know what they want to do with her. That is left to your imagination. But again, these are things that we hear. So we know that right now, the risk level for Harry is probably at its highest. And yet,
Australian taxpayers
are refusing
are
to do
partially
a risk
paying
assessment.
for Mr. and Mrs.
We
Grifter's
also know
phony
that the
royal
Daily
tour
Mail
down
has
under.
been sued
Yes.
by Harry.
Meghan Markle and her spare handbag Harry are on their
we know
way
that
to
the Daily
Australia
Mirror,
for the
they were
latest
sued
instalment
and they
of
were
the
found
Sussex's soap
liable
opera.
in
Months, of
phone
course, after
hacking
that fake
cases
visit to the Middle
involving
East.
Harry and
Now,
others.
why are they coming?
And Sky
you
News
might ask.
Australia
Well,
is
that is a
owned by
great
Rupert
question.
Murdoch.
I don't know
whose
why they're
international
even bothering,
titles were
because
at
the last
centre
time they came in
of the
2018,
original
Meghan had
phone
that
hacking scandal.
dreadful sourpuss
And these
face on the whole
outlets that
time,
he owns
and
have
then claimed the
maintained
Australia
a
tour
very
was the
hostile,
catalyst for her and
horrible
the spare
and negative
to leave the royal
attitude
family.
towards
She
Harry and
hated
Meghan.
every second,
ever since
apparently,
they've left the
and found
UK.
the
In
trip,
fact, before
quote,
they left the UK,
pointless.
and ever since they left the UK.
And have a look at this. A former politician
we have
here in
three
Sydney has just
organisations
revealed that when Harry
documented
toured an
histories of
upgraded war
illegal
memorial on that trip,
and or
there were
unethical
rumours
information
that she had
gathering
asked
and
if she
legal
would be
disputes
getting
with Harry,
an appearance fee.
specifically
That's according to David
breaking
Elliott.
the embargo.
So a veteran's wife
So I
asking
believe
for
that
an appearance
embargo
fee
was not
to tour a
accidentally
war
broken.
memorial?
Because when
Go
you
figure.
receive the information,
Seriously.
you
Now,
receive
the
it
Duke and
under
Duchess
an
of Privacy
agreement.
are
You
not
know
going to
the
get a
terms.
welcome reception here
So
this week after
when
they
you make the decision
disrespected
to
this
violate
country,
them anyway,
disrespected
that
the Queen
decision is
and
editorial.
the entire
it was
royal
made
family.
by someone with
We
the
don't want you
authority
here,
in
Meghan,
the organisation
and we don't want
that
you here,
decides
Harry,
that the story
because Australia
is worth a lot
welcomed the
more
newly married Duke
than
and
the
Duchess
agreement.
with
The
open
story
arms 8 years
is
ago.
worth more than
You
a
recall,
human
this
life.
was the trip
yes,
that they announced
I
they were
said
pregnant
it.
with their first
And
child.
this
Thousands
is
lined
why
the
I
streets
get
to greet
so
them. They were treated like
angry
rock
with
stars.
these
We
outlets,
adored them.
because
And they
these
shoved
are
it back in our faces
long-standing
because they hated the
agreements,
trip
and you make
then
these
left the royal
agreements
family.
whether or not
so
you
don't
like
expect
the person.
a welcome reception this
so
week.
if you keep
as I
breaking
said, this
these
is another
embargoes willy-nilly because you
have a look at
hate
this.
someone, you hate his wife, you don't
have
like
to
this,
fund
you
it.
don't like that, or because you're under
Us
orders
hard-working
from a
taxpayers
particular
have to pay
family.
for them to have
what does that
police,
say of you? What does
even
that,
though this is a
what does that
private
say
tour.
of you as a
You've got
publication,
to be kidding me.
as individuals?
This was meant to be a tour of Sydney, Canberra,
What
and
does that say
Melbourne
of your
for
values, your
private business
values and ethics?
and
We know
philanthropic engagements. In fact, according to the
don't
Daily
let me go
Mail,
there
the
about
couple's
values and
publicist
ethics.
Lee Maguire
But
said, quote,
anyway,
the trip is being funded
the
privately.
Sussex spokesperson,
Well,
I'm glad they spoke up.
It's clearly
I'm glad
not.
they are now
Now,
proactive.
they are not working royals.
I am so
They are
glad that
not
they
here
responded by
on the royal
announcing
agenda.
that there will be no
They are here
further
because they
timing
are so
details.
desperate and
Yes,
deluded and need
you
the
ain't
money
getting
because, of
nothing.
course, Meghan didn't
If you
sell enough
cannot learn
jam.
to control yourself and keep
Harry's
your
now
mouth
being
shut,
sued for
you are
defamation
not
by
getting
the
anything
charity
from
he
them.
co-founded. And let's be
Excuse
honest,
me.
everything
Hay
and
fever.
anything that they have
But
touched
anyway,
has been a complete
let me know
and
what you
utter
think
failure.
about all this in
So
the comments,
why do we
please,
have to pay for
because
their
I think
security?
this is disgusting.
And let's
But
also
anyway,
put this
my
into
name's Elizabeth.
perspective. We've
I'm
got
the
to pay
author
for
of
the
the Lux
police
Prada,
so that the grifters
and
can
for
go
more
on
insights
some
like these,
bizarre
please like,
speaking
share,
tour.
comment, and follow
Meghan,
me.
of course, with her Girls'
And
Weekend. Harry with yet
please,
another
when you
mental
subscribe,
health
make
speech.
sure you subscribe
and
to the
Australia
right channel.
is in the middle
my
of a cost
only
of living
channel
crisis.
on YouTube
Well,
is
Australian
Elizabeth Solaru
taxpayers are partially paying for Mr. and
4970.
endorses grifters, phony
And
royal
you can support
tour down
my work
under.
of holding truth
Yes.
to power
Meghan Markle
by
and
buying
her
me a coffee
spare
at
handbag Harry are on their way to Australia for the latest
you
instalment
can pick
of
up
the
a copy
Sussex's
of my
soap
book,
opera,
The
months, of course, after that fake
from
visit to the
Amazon,
Middle East.
Waterstones,
Now, why are they
Barnes
coming,
and Noble.
you might ask?
3 outlets broke the embargo and compromised security. 3 media outlets broke an embargo. And for those who are not familiar with how embargoes work in media terms, let me explain. When a public figure or their team shares information with journalists in advance of an event, that information is shared under an agreement that it will not be published until a specified time. This is standard practice across every area of journalism, allowing media organizations to prepare their coverage, write their stories, and have everything ready to publish the moment the embargo lifts. And in return, the subject of the coverage gets to control the timing of when information enters the public domain. The embargo is a contract, one of the most fundamental agreements in the professional relationship between a communications team and the press. And breaking it is not a minor technical violation, but a significant breach of trust that carries serious professional consequences in any functioning media environment. The Daily Mail broke the embargo. The Daily Mirror broke the embargo. Sky News Australia broke the embargo. And according to the Sussex media spokesperson, the information that was released did not just violate a professional agreement, but complicated and compromised security arrangements for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, which means that when security information about a high-profile individual's movements, timing, and location is published before it is supposed to be, the people responsible for keeping that individual safe have to reassess and in some cases restructure their entire operational plan. Routes change, timing changes, resources have to be redeployed, and the careful work that a security team does in advance, the risk assessment, the contingency planning, the communication protocols, has to be partially or entirely redone because information that was supposed to be controlled is now in the public domain and therefore available to anyone with hostile intentions. What is a media embargo? When a public figure or their team shares information with journalists in advance of an event, that information is shared under an agreement that it will not be published until a specified time. This is standard practice across every area of journalism. It allows media organizations to prepare their coverage, write their stories, and have everything ready to publish the moment the embargo lifts. In return, the subject of the coverage gets to control the timing of when information enters the public domain. The embargo is a contract. It is one of the most fundamental agreements in the professional relationship between a communications team and the press. Why breaking an embargo is serious. Breaking an embargo is not a minor technical violation. It is a significant breach of trust that carries serious professional consequences in any functioning media environment. This is not someone forgetting to check a time zone or misreading a date on a release form. This is a deliberate editorial decision made by someone with authority in an organization who decided that the story was worth more than the agreement and worth more than the consequences. It demonstrates an organization's willingness to prioritize getting a story out ahead of schedule over honoring professional agreements that govern the entire industry. When you break an embargo, you are not making a mistake. You are making a choice. And that choice tells everyone who works with you exactly how much your word is worth. Security implications of the breach. Let me be very clear about what that means. When security information about a high-profile individual's movements, timing and location is published before it is supposed to be, the people responsible for keeping that individual safe have to reassess and in some cases restructure their entire operational plan. routes change, timing changes, resources have to be redeployed. The careful work that a security team does in advance, the risk assessment, the contingency planning, the communication protocols, has to be partially or entirely redone because information that was supposed to be controlled is now in the public domain and therefore available to anyone with hostile intentions. 3 media outlets broke an embargo and compromised royal security. Harry has said repeatedly and publicly that he does not feel safe. He has fought legal battles across multiple jurisdictions to secure adequate protection for himself and his family. He has described specific threats. He has documented the institutional failure to provide appropriate security for someone of his profile and risk level. And 3 media organizations have now published information that their own spokesperson has confirmed compromised the security arrangements for his Australian visit. The pattern of outlets involved. The Daily Mail has been sued by Harry in the phone hacking litigation. The Daily Mirror has been sued and found liable in phone hacking cases involving Harry and others. Sky News Australia is owned by Rupert Murdoch, whose News International titles were at the centre of the original phone hacking scandal, and whose outlets have maintained a consistently hostile relationship with Harry and Meghan since their departure from the institution. 3 organisations with documented histories of illegal or unethical information gathering and legal disputes with Harry specifically are the 3 that broke the embargo and compromised his security. This is not a coincidence. The Sussex response. The Sussex spokesperson has responded by announcing that no further timing details will be shared with media in Australia. The tour will proceed, but the press will be given less access and less advance information, because 3 of them demonstrated that they cannot be trusted with it. This is the correct response, and it is a response that anyone who has been paying attention to the pattern of how these organisations have covered Harry and Meghan will recognise as entirely proportionate. When you cannot trust someone with sensitive information, you stop giving them sensitive information. When an organisation shows you through its actions that it prioritises clicks over security, you treat it accordingly. The Daily Mail, the Daily Mirror and Sky News Australia have each demonstrated through documented behaviour spanning years that they operate outside the boundaries of responsible journalism when it comes to this couple. Now they have confirmed it again by breaking an embargo that carried direct security implications. So they will not receive what they have proven they cannot handle responsibly. That is not punitive. That is professional consequence meeting professional misconduct. The sacred trust they chose to break. This is not simply about 3 media outlets making a mistake. This is about the broader reality that some organisations have forfeited their right to be treated as good faith partners in any professional information sharing arrangement. The embargo system, which functions across every sector of journalism, from science to entertainment to politics, depends entirely on trust. It depends on the understanding that when you are given access to information under specific conditions, you honour those conditions because that is the foundational agreement that allows the system to work. The Daily Mail, the Daily Mirror and Sky News Australia have now demonstrated, in a way that carries measurable security consequences, that they cannot be trusted with that agreement. And when media outlets repeatedly violate the most fundamental professional standards, when they make editorial decisions that they know will compromise security arrangements for individuals who have documented credible threats against them, when they do so in the context of ongoing legal disputes and established patterns of hostile coverage, they must be held accountable. not through symbolic gestures or temporary restrictions, but through the permanent recognition that they have disqualified themselves from the privilege of advance access. The embargo is sacred because it protects both the integrity of coverage and the safety of those being covered. They broke it anyway, and the consequences should be absolute.